Hello everyone, Pam Isley here from WCW's Radio of Horror, here with the video review for Hemlock Grove Season 2. Now, I love Hemlock Grove. I have such a TV hangover right now because I have to wait until next year for Season 3. So, I love everything about this, right down to the theme song, which is equal parts Sherlock Holmes and Are You Afraid of the Dark? And there's smoke that looks like ovaries. It's really quite weird. And this whole show is quite weird. And there's lots of monsters and gore and guts and sex and cigarettes and fights and medieval axes and weird medical stuff. There's really anything that you could ask for. Now, that being said, Season 2 picks up right where Season 1 left off, where Peter believes he has lost Letha and the baby that he was prepared to raise. He was not the father of his child, but he was prepared to raise his child, and he's really going through this internal conflict. The first few episodes are really light on Roman, who is having an internal conflict of his own, as he's starting to turn into this hungry monster. And all I can think about is feeding and drinking blood, and his mother, who I thought he killed and hope that he killed, is still alive, and she's recuperating, and the treatment that she's receiving is making her more human. So she's experiencing empathy, and there was this great line given by Famke Janssen's character, Olivia, there, who says, "Oh, empathy, how quaint and pointless." And I just love that. I think she plays that like hard bitch character really well. And I do love Olivia, but yeah, she's bad. She's a bad lady. So anyway, but she's risen and Roman's still avoiding her, and basically we see that he's still taking care of Letha's child. And Peter is off reconnecting with his family. And he immediately gets more external conflict as his mother is arrested. He and his cousin Destiny, who plays a much larger role this season, have to raise $20,000 to hire what Peter calls the lady lawyer. And Peter, played by Landon LeBryan, sorry, totally butchered that name, but he delivers this great line where he says, "I don't have $20,000, I don't have $20, I don't have shit." And they go off on this journey to try to find this $20,000 to hire this lawyer to legally try to get the mother out of jail, because half of the charges are trumped up, but some of them are legitimate. And that's where they start to run into problems. But he does raise the money by conning a bunch of drug dealers into thinking he's made this new designer drug. And the way that he cons them is he turns into a werewolf before their eyes, but it's not the full moon, so he turns on the wrong moon, and doing so could turn him into a vargwolf, meaning his human form will be trapped inside his wolf form forever. So he's getting like really aggressive afterwards and completely losing his shit, and plus he's pissed off a bunch of drug dealers, which is never a good idea. So there's a lot going on, and there happens to be even more going on when Miranda drops in. Now, Miranda gets run off the road. She's this cute little blonde punk rock tattooed character. She gets run off the road and shows up on Roman Godfrey's door asking to use his phone. She says she doesn't have insurance. And he kind of puts her up, even though he's acting like a creep and a weirdo and he wants to eat her and stuff. So then Miranda leaves Roman's house now that they're kind of creeping each other out, and goes and meets Peter, who is employed at a towing company, and he's fixing her car. And she ends up hooking up with the both of them, which is really kind of cool. What a lucky girl. Oh man, I love me some Bill Skarsgård. Anyway, so she's hooking up with the both of them, and so the two reconnect because they hadn't spoken for about the first 5 episodes or so, because when Peter had left before, after Letha's death, he left Roman alone, and Roman's really burdened by his friend turning his back on him. So they reconnect over it. They have this big fight in the living room where Roman can't really keep up with Peter because Peter is turning into this bird wolf and he's super hyper aggressive, and Roman is undergoing treatments that will make him more human, administered by Dr. Johann, the hysterical strength doctor, who really doesn't show any muscle this season. I don't know. He did last season. I don't know why they didn't go anywhere with that. But nonetheless, Roman's trying to be more human, so he'll be less like Olivia, and he hopes maybe then Olivia will just leave him alone, and he'll just, like, I don't know, run the company and be a billionaire and not be the oupier. Which is pretty cool concept too. They stick needles in his eyeballs. It really freaked me out. But anyway, so they both have found out that Miranda is sleeping with both of them. Destiny had confronted Miranda about it and accused her of conning them, which it kind of seemed like she was, honestly. It seemed like she was going along with Peter because he was going to fix her car. And I mean, she was already in Roman's house, and it's like really nice there, except for the weird padded bunker that has a baby in it. And anyway, Miranda starts lactating, so she starts feeding the child. She becomes a de facto child's mom, but then she's following Roman and Peter around, and meanwhile there's this serial killer cult that's out killing children, and she sees Roman and Peter kill these cult members, these masked serial killers, and Peter turns back from being a wolf, which he's turned on the wrong moon again, which kind of sealing his fate, and Roman then eats their blood. So she is respectably freaked out, and then the baby starts having telekinetic powers. It really gets totally nuts. So yeah. So they spend a lot of the time, the two main characters spend a lot of time fighting their inner demons, while Miranda kind of just, everything kind of gravitates around her. She ends up nursing this child, she ends up in both these men's lives, and they all end up having a threesome, which they totally leave behind closed doors. And I was kind of offended by this because I think this is, you know, the modern era. This isn't the weirdest thing that could happen. It's definitely out of the ordinary, I guess, but it's really not the weirdest thing that could happen on a show where you have serial killer cults murdering children, flesh-ripping fights, drugs, medical experiments, beheadings, people getting ripped in half. It's baffling. You know, you have, on the sexual side, because I'm certainly not saying that sex is the same as violence. I think sex is less bad than violence. I don't understand why we're still such freaking Puritans about it. But they have Miranda. You can see, like, her nipples up close in the camera. She's lactating. You see her shirtless, like, 50 times throughout this. You see her hooking up with both guys at some point. But when it comes to the three of them being together, they leave that completely behind closed doors. You see them both going up the stairs, and then the next morning you see them having coffee. And it's like, why did we leave that completely in the dark, of all things? It's not that weird. And you kind of get the sense that Roman and Peter love each other a lot anyway. So, I don't know. I don't know what's up with that Netflix. I just don't get it. We're not Puritans. It's cool. Like, just show it. It's fine. Because I did like the, you know, the love V, if you will. Anyway, what else did I do? So yeah, Miranda's played by Madeline Brewer, who really does an excellent job with this character. She goes from really being spunky and wanting to be all about it and doing her own thing, to being completely overwhelmed. Her reaction is very, very, very genuine. But throughout this, and on the other side, you have these quiet moments with Shelley, and she's been on the lam ever since she ran off and got shot at the final showdown between the werewolves. And she meets a little boy, they make friends, he reads her stories, and from there on out, she starts emailing her Uncle Norman, who kind of comes to her rescue after a while. But she accidentally gets this child in a dangerous situation with his abusive family, and then she heads back to the lab where she's now wanted for murder, and they have a description of her, and she has her weird eye, her big hands, her bad posture. She's kind of easy to find. So Johan's going to transfer her brain into this test tube body that he's created that's this beautiful blonde woman, and Shelley's going to finally have this life without these bizarre physical limitations. And she really resolves herself to this, and she's happy that this is going to be her life, and she's happy for the person in the tube who's going to get to live with her consciousness as well. So there's a lot going on with that. There's a lot of character development for Shelley, where before she was just kind of there to make Roman seem more human, because Roman always had more compassion for her than he did for anyone, especially other people in his family. Meanwhile, too, you also have Olivia, who's struggling with becoming healthy again, I guess. And she finds that she's dying of cancer. She's aging rapidly, and she has a tumor. She's approaching the end of her life. And she decides that she wants to spend the rest of her now human lifespan with Norman, who of course was her former husband's brother, Letha's father, and technically Roman's father. Anyway, but he's been stalking around with a private eye to catch who killed his wife, and guess what? It's Olivia. Anyway, so, and we also have the detective who is trying to find who murdered his sister. That was also Olivia. And so he's kind of alternately in the way and helping Roman throughout to try to find who killed his sister. They don't really get any vengeance. And at the end, Miranda's doctor turns into a flying manta ray and flies off with her and the baby. And it was the most baffling ending. And everyone just stood there like... And then I just sat there like... But anyway, I loved it. The creep factor is way up there. It's very, very atmospheric. It's like nothing done on American TV right this second. Except for maybe recently Showtime's Penny Dreadful. It kind of has that too. But I like the more modern feel of it. I love Bill Skarsgård, like 50s greaser haircut thing. It's just beautiful. Yeah. And you have a pretty diverse cast. There's a lot going on. So I think that Netflix should be really proud of what they put out. I wish the season was a little bit longer. But I don't know how I'm going to survive till next year without it. What's going to happen? What's going to happen with Nadia? Anyway, thanks guys.